Nobody has done more for the black community than Donald Trump. And if you look, with the exception of Abraham Lincoln, possible exception, but the exception of Abraham Lincoln, nobody has done what I've done.
You know, I'm not sure what's more offensive, what you just heard the president say there about African Americans and putting him in company with Honest Abe, or what his son-in-law and advisor Jared Kushner told Fox and Friends this morning.
One thing we've seen in a lot of the black community, which is mostly Democrat, is that President Trump's policies are the policies that can help people break out of the problems that they're complaining about, but he can't want them to be successful more than they want to be successful. And what you're seeing throughout the country now is a groundswell of support in the black community.
African Americans not buying it, if you believe the polls. New numbers out from CBS News and BET show that 9 in 10 African American voters, they're picking Biden. 8% right now, only 8 want Trump to be reelected. Of course, Biden, he worked for the first African American president for 8 years, and that president now campaigning for him in key swing states. My next guest, also in the Obama administration with a prominent role, both terms serving as senior advisor to Barack Obama, Valerie Jarrett. She joins me now. She's also author of the book, Finding My Voice, My Journey to the West Wing and the Path Forward. And thank you, Valerie, for joining us. Just react to what you heard, not just in the debate stage, but what Jared Kushner said this morning.
Well, first of all, hello, Richard. I would say that both were equally offensive. As a Black American myself, I've spent the last 4 years feeling that this administration didn't care about me, didn't prioritize me, actually was incendiary in many ways at getting people to rally against the Black community, whether it was after the Charlottesville demonstrations where he said they were good people on both sides. Really? They're good people on both sides of that issue? I don't think so. And from the policies, the tone, the rhetoric, all designed to appeal to an ever-shrinking base of supporters, while at the same time leaving everybody else feeling left out. When he attacked the 4 women of color who are members of Congress, American citizens, and told them to go back to their countries, I mean, what is that rhetoric coming from someone who's supposed to be the president of all of America? And I think that's in sharp contrast to Joe Biden, who I had the privilege of knowing for 8 years and who is running as a Democrat but will govern as the president for our entire country.
I was wrong, like many, 4 years ago, how the election would turn out. But I thought at the time, Valerie, that the girders of democracy wouldn't let any one person go so far afield that we could get to be in this divided place that we are right now. I thought basic checks and balances would have stopped that. I also thought the Republican Party wouldn't have let, you know, the party of Lincoln become what it is right now. Are you surprised also if I told you 4 years ago, forgetting even COVID, America would look the way it is right now? Would you have thought that possible?
Well, I will say it's a civics lesson for everyone. Look, we have rules. We are supposed to be a nation of laws. We also have social norms. And I think that this administration has blown through all of the social norms and really challenged the integrity of the core of our democracy. But this is the good news I would offer to you, Richard. As you travel around the country, I'm doing it now virtually, I think the vast majority of the American people are good and decent people. They're struggling. They're trying to figure out how to provide for their families, particularly in light of the COVID-19 that has affected families, millions of families all across our country, and millions more who are afraid of losing their jobs or losing their lives or those of their loved ones. And so it's been a really challenging year and last 4 years. But I think part of why we're seeing such an outpour of early voters taking advantage of the opportunity in states to show up early, weathering long lines, which it is unconscionable that we haven't figured out how to pull off an election without Americans having to stand in line for these lengthy periods of time. But people are standing, they are resolute, and I think it's because they realize that this is the most important election of our lifetime. And the only way that we're going to see change and move in a new direction is if we, the people, completely get involved and exercise our most important responsibility of citizenship, Richard, and that's voting.
You know, Valerie, in a few minutes I'm going to be talking to Senator Bob Casey, who's going to be a no vote later this evening when the Senate votes on the confirmation of Justice Barrett. And he's doing so in large part because of the consequences that he believes a repeal of the ACA could have if the Supreme Court in the now 6-3 court will rule. But I saw your old boss's piece that he wrote in the New Yorker about just how hard it was, and you were there for every step of this, to get the ACA passed, how complicated a package it is, where now more than 2/3 of the American public supports. This idea that if magically it gets eliminated, not just all the millions of Americans are going to be harmed by it, but just how complicated it is to put together a replacement. Could you speak to that a little bit? Because I think people are misinformed that, well, fine, they'll wait, and then January they'll just put another package in, no harm, no foul. It doesn't work that way. If this gets removed, it's not so simple just snapping our fingers and we'll get 2.0 version.
Well, that's exactly right. Look, it was one of the more difficult pieces of business that we got done. It is a very challenging effort. There are lots of moving parts to it. And look, there are so many millions of Americans with pre-existing conditions, over 100 million, many more as a result of the COVID-19 virus. And if the Supreme Court rules that it is unconstitutional, immediately that protection is gone. The 20+ million people who are participating in the exchanges around our country lose their insurance right away. Women, preventive care, lose it right away. Children wanting to stay on their parents' plans until they're 26, lose it right away. And so in the period of time between the time the law is deemed unconstitutional and until you can put together another package, hey, and get the votes of the members of Congress to support it, what happens in that gap period? And that's why it is so profoundly disturbing to me that President Trump signed an executive order allegedly protecting people with pre-existing conditions. He doesn't have the authority to do that. That's why you have a law. It takes Congress to do that. He can't, with the strike of a pen, require insurance companies to protect people in that way. He has to go back to Congress. And for the 10 years since the Affordable Care Act passed, the Republicans have been using this narrative, repeal and replace. But guess what? There is yet to be a plan to replace it. In fact, at the debate the other night, when pushed, President Trump just kept saying, in 2 weeks, I'll have a plan. Or after we lose at the Supreme Court, or after we win at the Supreme Court. Why can't they unveil their plan today? Because they don't have one, because it is a complicated piece of business. And so we're leaving the American people in the lurch without a possible way of protecting them and arguing before the court right now that it is unconstitutional. I might add for the third time, and I hope that as people go to vote, those folks who are benefiting from the Affordable Care Act or who have family members who are, will remember that this is the administration that is trying desperately to take it away from you.
In the middle of a pandemic. Obviously, at the White House, for many of us, Joe Biden is a soundbite that we may hear, but you got to know the person. I want to play a clip. This just surfaced recently. This was from 2 years ago, before he was even a presidential candidate. And he went back to Parkland, and he was speaking to the school and obviously a lot of people who had lost loved ones that day. And there was a moment that came up where a son who had lost his father impromptu approached the vice president. Here it is.
Who are the parents?
Yeah. I'm the wife. I'm Chris Hickson's wife.
God love you.
Thank you. I wanted to. Okay. This is Chris's son.
Well, how are you? Good. Thank you for hugging me. You okay? You okay? You'll be okay. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. I promise. Okay, I promise.
Listen, you know better than I, being a president is not just about what you do in front of the camera. It's about policy. It's about preparation. It's about surrounding yourself with the right people. But one of my kids was watching that, and they said, I can't imagine President Trump hugging that boy. And empathy is important if you're going to connect with the American public. And that was not a manufactured moment from Joe Biden. You were in the Oval more times than you can count. Can you talk about how it matters on how you don't look at people if they're blue or red?
Well, watching that, I filled up with tears again, just imagining that moment. And it was spontaneous, it was authentic, and that's the Joe that I know. And any meeting that he was in, he came in with his experience, his intellect, his character, life experiences, including empathy. And it is the temperament of the president matters. How on earth can you serve the American people unless you can meet them where they are and respond to them in a purely visceral, emotional way, just as you saw Vice President Biden hug that boy close? And I'll share with you, my dad died while we were in the administration. And Vice President Biden came up to my office, I would have happily gone down to his, closed the door, and said to me, I promise you that your tears of sorrow will turn into smiles of joy in time when you think about your dad. I will remember that act of grace, of kindness for the rest of my life. And I think we are hungry for a president who has that kind of empathy, who has experienced extraordinary grief in his life and has taken that and channeled it into wanting to be a force for good. And I saw him do that on so many occasions where people had lost their loved ones, our military families who had suffered and sacrificed so much. And we need that in our country. I think we hunger for it. And so, yes, I'm glad he's competent and smart and has great experience and good judgment. All of that's important. But temperament and empathy are important too.
Valerie Jarrett, much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Stay safe.
You as well. When we come back, everyone, one of the 100 senators who will have a vote tonight on Amy Coney Barrett, well, he will join us next. And Senator Bob Casey from Pennsylvania, he's upset both about the process and the judge who's about to take her place on the high court.